Thanks very much for joining us for episode 17 of InTek Freight and Logistics, the podcast. I'm Kevin Baxter, and I'm joined by my co-hosts for this edition, InTek President Shelli Austin and InTek CEO Rick LaGore. On this episode, we're looking ahead to a couple of major transportation-related events coming up soon. Let's get started. Next month, the Intermodal Association of North America, IANA, hosts its annual gathering known as the Intermodal EXPO. To give us and you a primer, we welcome Rob Cannizzaro, Chief Operating Officer of IANA. Rob, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kevin. Glad to be here.
And so before we get into Expo, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with IANA.
Yeah, great. So as you said, Rob Cannizzaro, Chief Operating Officer with the Intermodal Association of North America. I've been in this role and on staff with the organization for the past 8 months. Unlike most of the staff members of IANA, I am not native to the trade association world. I actually came from the association's membership. I spent 30 years or so in the intermodal business, primarily on the marine side. I worked for ocean carriers and Port Authority marine terminal operators, was fortunate enough to be elected to the board of directors of IANA and came to staff that way. Chief Operating Officer, I'm responsible for the association's operations, both on member services and in our info services division, and having a lot of fun being here.
Great. So this will be your first Expo in this position then?
Absolutely. Yeah, my 14th Expo attending and my first as staff.
So you already have experience with it from a different perspective, but in general, tell us about what Expo is.
So Expo is the premier intermodal event in North America. It's a must attend for anyone who's involved in or interested in intermodal. We have motor carriers, railroads, ocean carriers, ports, marine terminal operators, third-party logistics providers, and their suppliers all get together once a year to network, to receive information and education, and to engage in a trade show exhibit hall, which is second to none.
Before we get too far into it, what's the particular in terms of when and where Expo is?
So Expo has been for the past couple of years and will be again held in Long Beach, California at the Long Beach Convention Center. It starts on September 11th and runs through the 13th, which coincidentally coincides with the evening's event, the West Coast Connie Awards, which is a great event raising scholarship money. And it's nice that our attendees can actually finish up at Expo and then head across the street for that wonderful event.
So it's an annual event. You said you've been going for 14 years. What are some of the things you consider, an ongoing highlight, things that you get out of it every time you go?
Yeah. The first highlight of Expo is networking. Amongst the members that I've talked to and the attendees, everyone highlights the fact that networking is what intermodal is all about. It's a people business, and the networking opportunities built into the Expo program are the best opportunity for attendees to reconnect with colleagues across the modal spectrums. Number two, it's a trade show. Exhibitors from a broad range of intermodal companies come to meet with current and potential customers and business partners, highlighting the value they offer to the industry. And finally, it's about education. Every year, our education team designs panels covering the most important topics of the day and then finds the best thought leaders from across the industry to share their perspectives. It's really the trifecta of what Expo is all about.
So, Rob, I'm going to jump in here because I just can't handle being quiet. I don't do well with sitting and you and me, I like to talk. So unexpectedly, I'm going to jump in here as we talk about the highlights of the Expo because it's near and dear to myself and we participate and we really enjoy it. I think this year has so many things to offer and there's a lot of things. So you definitely highlighted the main things that are some highlights, but tell us a little bit about some of the things that people don't necessarily know. One of the things I always like to talk about, you mentioned education. So, there's a case competition that happens every year. And so you and I spend a lot of time on the scholarships. I think that's something unique to our Expo and to our convention is how much we have students in education involved in this Expo. So if you could kind of spend a little time on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time this year, our student case competition is going to be held live where the students receive the specifics of the case that they're about to present on just the day before they're going to do their presentation. So we'll do that on Sunday with the students. Normally they receive that information in advance. It's a high quality case with real world examples and facts and figures taken from industry challenges that current intermodalists are facing. And these students from our scholarship schools get to brainstorm and present to industry executives. Most of them come from our board of directors, and those industry executives act as a panel of judges to eventually select a case competition winner. And those students who win the case competition will be honored on the main stage during the opening events. So really exciting stuff. It gives those students not only an opportunity to come out to Expo to get to go tour the port, but to directly interact with industry executives, which is an experience that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The other thing that you mentioned, Rob, that I wanted to touch on is you mentioned networking. And I just think that, we are so fortunate to have such a collaborative industry and just a collaborative industry that we all work in. I was thinking about it this morning on my drive into work. I was thinking about, are there other industries that have all this collaboration with all these other individual companies that come together to bring one really true phenomenal service? And I couldn't think of too many others. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about the location of Expo, because what's so cool is everybody comes to this location and you're talking about intermodal and you literally can see physical parts of an intermodal solution while you're there at Expo. And I think that really plays a big part in this.
Yeah, it's a great point, Shelli. I've been tasked with thinking about this a lot over the course of the last 8 months, not only intermodal and how it works, but the collective nature of our business. And it comes down to the fundamentals of intermodalism are essentially the fundamentals of why we trade with each other. It's because different countries, different businesses, different modes do things better, more efficiently than other countries' trading partners' modes. So if you allow everyone to work most efficiently, you have the best possible network. What that requires, though, is collaboration. It gets complicated when you need to involve other parties, like intermodal requires. So it's fundamental that you have the ability to collaborate. Long Beach, California, incredible intermodal city. Right there, the convention center and those immediate hotels around the convention center have a view on the greatest port in North America from a size and volume standpoint, LA Long Beach. Not only that, the weather is typically phenomenal. There are a lot of things to do in and around Long Beach, but it is truly an intermodal city. And you'll see trucks, containers, chassis, not only right on the trade show floor, but on the promenade outside the convention center. And it's an amazing opportunity to be so close to our business.
That is amazing. And I promise I'll stop stealing the show here, Rob. I had one more that I was going to throw out there because I know we're going to talk about a little bit of a sneak peek on some panels, because that's a big part of our expo, right? We have some industry knowledge experts that get on our panels and do a great job. Are there any guest speakers or anything that's exciting that's going to happen on the expo floor in combination with what we're going to see in the panels?
So when I think about the speakers and who's going to be on the stage, there are a few that really stand out for me this year. The first is John Foley. He's a former lead pilot of the Blue Angels. And if you have ever seen those folks fly planes, it's incredible what they're able to do. John's going to talk to us about building teams. He's really an expert, but he's talking about building teams that operate at a very high performance level in a high stress environment. And what it takes to get that done is a very high level of trust, right? Those pilots have to really rely on each other to know their roles and to know their places. And I think that's essential in the intermodal business. We have to trust our modal partners to know what they do and to be experts at their crafts. And I think that it's really going to be interesting to hear John speak about how he could translate lessons he's learned in the Blue Angels to intermodal. The second thing I'm really excited about is Katie Farmer, the CEO of the BNSF. One of the big Class 1 railroads, is going to be honored with our Silver Kingpin Award this year. She's had an incredible career. She's a former chair of the Intermodal Association, so she's one of our own. And it's great to see what she's done at the BN. And it's going to be great to see her accept that award. And one of the other things I'm really excited about is your organization, InTek Freight and Logistics. You guys are so involved in IANA and in Expo. Not only will Rick be speaking on a panel called IMCs, a primer, but Shelli, not only are you president of InTek Freight and Logistics, but you're also our current IANA chair, and you'll be playing a key role, as our chairs always do, in the expo. So I'm excited for your participation as well. It's going to be great.
Yeah, how has that been, both Rob and Shelli, in your roles this year leading into Expo? How is it different than in the past? I mean, Shelli, I know you've been on the board for a bit, and Rob, you have had involvement there as well. But how has it been different this year in your current positions?
Yeah, for myself, it's really been, it has been really different, which I wasn't sure, Kevin, if it would be that different, serving on the board for as long as I did and having the passion for IANA that I did. I didn't know what was to come on being in the chairman role. But I think if you embrace it for what it is and really execute on trying to learn more and get into the parts and pieces that a lot of times people that are either on the board or facilitate in just a single segment of the intermodal service, a lot of times you don't get to see that whole collaboration that we talked about, or that whole global picture of what IANA truly is and what it brings to the table. So I've fortunately been able to spend a lot more time with the IANA organization, with staff, and learning more about what they do. I've also been able to spend a lot more time just diving into, even though the education piece was always a big highlight for me, I've been able to dive more into the colleges and the education and learn more about what they're doing, and just, collaborate more. I'm using that word way too much. Sorry, but talk more to
That's a good word.
Yeah. Talk more to the other modes, because sometimes when you're in this industry, sometimes you get into that silo of, what you do and don't spend as much time learning what the others do. And I have found, on the marine side, those are things that we, as a 3PL, sometimes we touch it a little bit and we interface just a smidge with it, but we don't really get into the deep parts of it. And so to be able to work with the folks and the experts on the different modes, I just find that being in the chairman role has really forced me to get more of a global perspective of the IANA organization versus just that kind of silo that with the 3PL world we've always been in.
How about you, Rob, in terms of leading into Expo this year?
So for me, it's been incredible. It's akin to going to your favorite restaurant every week and enjoying the food and enjoying the front of house and, the dining room, and everything looks great and everything looks smooth. And then to get to actually go and be a part of the kitchen staff and see how much excitement and how much work and energy is going into creating that experience in the front of the house. So I got a first glimpse into it at our business meeting, which was held in Chicago in May, just to see the amount of detail and hard work that our staff exerts in putting on a top shelf event. They're like ducks, very calm above the water, but those legs are underneath the surface or paddling as fast as they can. I've looked at our task list for Expo. We have a spreadsheet that documents several thousand line items of details that need to be coordinated in order to pull this off. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be back in Long Beach with my friends and colleagues in the intermodal world, but I'm also excited to play my role. And before business meeting, I had a meeting with the team and I asked them, where do you need me? What do you need me to do? And that goes from Joni Casey, our CEO, but also from the staff that's on the scene. What role do you want me to play? Where do you need my help? And I want to make sure that I'm doing exactly that. So I listen to them. They tell me where they need me, and that's where I try to go. And otherwise, I'm taking notes. So I have a notebook with me all the time, and I'm trying to make observations and come back from Expo with a list of opportunities for improvement and things that I've learned. So really looking forward to this one.
Rick, Rob touched on your speaking engagement there, the panel that you're going to be on. Can you give us like a little sneak peek of what you're going to be covering?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be two people on the panel. It's going to be myself and Kristy Knichel from Cannizzaro Logistics, longtime partner of ours. And basically what we're going to talk about, we're taking a little bit of different twists than what they've done previously on talking about a primer to being an IMC and everything. Because previously it was more about education of what it is and how it fits in the market. This panel is going to be based off of, okay, you are an IMC, so how can you perform excellent in that service? How can you expand your business? How can you go to, one of the big things that we talk about is, particularly in intermodal, is the number of people that you have to have and the relationships that you build and your network expand. You need that to be very successful within the intermodal space, which this conference Expo is great for that. But in any case, we got a lot of different parts and pieces. We talk about pricing, we talk about the market, we talk about asset and non-asset and where you can find parts and pieces to be able to put your solution together for your customer. And then we talk a little bit about marketing too. So I think it's going to be a great conference. I think it's going to be a great panel, and we're really looking forward to it. Actually, yesterday we went over it for the first time, which is great. The way IANA puts everything together is they want to make sure that they have some insight into what's going to be said, and then give their perspective of, hey, this is my membership, and these are the types of questions that they'd be asking. So anyway, looking forward to it.
Great. So we talked about this being a big networking event, a lot of people coming together. Is there an ideal attendee, somebody who's listening, thinking like, maybe is this conference for me or not?
So let me frame that up with what this year is starting to look like. So first of all, our exhibit floor is sold out. And not only is it sold out, but there's actually a waiting list behind it. So we're working hard to try and figure out, is there any more room at the inn, so to speak? So what that says to me is that exhibit floor is going to be packed with exhibitors that are very interested in being there. They want to be there. They've made a choice, and there was some competition to get that space. So it's going to be exciting to see the trade show floor and to be a part of it. The next thing is we track our registrations, and obviously we still have a few weeks to go, but we're tracking well ahead of where we have been in previous years, and we expect what could be a record attendance at Expo this year. So between record volume of exhibitors on the trade show floor and record number of attendees, it's really going to be an energized Expo for us this year. So super excited about that. Who's the ideal attendee? Everyone is. There's something for everyone. If you are interested or involved in intermodal, you want to be there. You're an industry veteran. You're going back to strengthen your longstanding relationships. You're seeing people you know. You're getting to spend time with them. You're also getting to stay abreast of current trends. I mean, I learned something in every panel that I've ever attended at Expo, whether it was my first Expo or my 13th. If you're newer in the industry, well, this is a place to build relationships. Meet those people that you might have only dealt with over the phone. Maybe they're, across the country from you, and you don't get to travel as much as you did potentially pre-pandemic. The other thing is that those folks that are newer to the industry are actually building their knowledge base at our education events. They're building a foundation. They're taking back things that they're learning at Expo, and they're using them to do great things in their business. And finally, we talked about the students. So people that aren't yet in intermodal but are interested in it are getting exposed to those things that are going to make them valuable employees in the future. And that's what we're all looking for in our businesses, whether you're an ocean carrier or a 3PL, a railroad, a motor carrier, or a supplier. We're all looking for the next generation to come from the seeds that we're planting at Expo and through IANA. So something for everyone.
Also, based on the tracking and everything, it sounds like now's the time to register if you haven't yet. So how do people go about registering? And do they need to be IANA members or no to come?
So registration is easy. It's all online right now. Intermodal.org/Intermodal Expo. Registration is available online and open through August 31st. So the clock is ticking. Just a few weeks to go. Everyone is welcome to attend. You don't need to be a member of IANA to attend. However, there is a discount for members, and our membership rates are so low, we encourage people to become members of IANA. There's much more benefit than cost, so be a part of it to continue to make sure that it continues to exist. So we'll look forward to everyone attending, but love to have people come back from Expo and join as new members.
And if somebody listens to this after August 31st, but before the conference, there's still an opportunity to walk up, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't want to encourage you to do that. Certainly it makes sense to register in advance. But if you can't for some reason, or you find yourself in Long Beach and didn't know you were going to be there, come on down and register on site.
Great. Rob, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks to you. Appreciate the opportunity. I'll see you in Long Beach in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Shelli. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
The Journal of Commerce hosts its Inland Distribution Conference, commonly referred to as Inland, in late September. To tell us about the conference, we welcome our first ever returning guest. Check out episode 6 for his first appearance, Ashe, a senior editor with the Journal of Commerce. Ari, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll start right off with the overall 30,000 foot view. Tell us about the Inland Distribution Conference.
Sure. So the Inland Distribution Conference is really the complement to our other big conference, TPM. TPM is all about the ocean transportation and the ports. Inland takes it from there and covers how that freight is moved across the United States in intermodal, international and domestic intermodal, in full truckload, in LTL, even in parcel or expedited in a way. And we take it from the tact of the Journal of Commerce mission overall, which is from the perspective of the shippers and receivers, and what are the issues that matter to them, and what are the things they want to hear from their service providers. So a lot of this conference will be about questions that the customers have of their intermodal or trucking providers.
And before we get too far into it, where is it and when is it?
So it will run from September 25th to 27th in Chicago. The good thing about this is that on day one in Chicago, it's at by the way, the Weston River North Hotel, if anyone is looking for that precise information. So the good part is the first day of the conference, we're going to have learning classes, sessions. You could think of them like seminars at a conference. And so day 2 and day 3 are the traditional conference sessions in a ballroom with someone on stage. But that first day, we're bringing in shippers and 3PLs and other experts to teach classes on items that, frankly, a lot of shippers want to hear more about. So we've got one about vetting freight brokerages, because we hear shippers all the time hearing about, we hear complaints about how they get so many calls from freight brokers, 8, 9, 10 a day. How do you vet all those phone calls and get through all of that volume? So we're going to teach a class on vetting the freight brokerages. We have another one about getting your voice heard in the C-suite. So how does a director of transportation or director of logistics who's using intermodal or truckload really get through to the C-suite on what's going on in that market and have them understand and care about what's going on in transportation? We have others as well, but that first day is really going to be a good opportunity for people who want to learn more about the inner workings of various parts of shipping and receiving to get that education.
So is this something that really does evolve year to year in terms of sort of listening to the chatter out there and addressing it?
Very much so. So this year, the theme, because the market is so depressed, is catching the rebound or being prepared for the next rebound. And frankly, what we heard from a lot of shippers is skepticism and concern that when the volumes do rebound, that service will degrade to some of the levels that we did see in late 20 and 21 and even part of 22. And so a lot of what we'll talk about here is not only a market outlook, but when volume does recover, what is being done now, today, to prepare the network for that uptick in volume so that while service may still degrade in trucking or intermodal or LTL, the drop-off isn't as severe as some of these past cycles. That'll be a big theme in a lot of our sessions.
And Shelli's doing one of those, actually, regarding intermodal.
So yeah. Shelli will be on a session with CSX, Drew Johnson, the head of their domestic intermodal, Spencer Frazier of JB Hunt. Shelli will be there as well, and Tim Humbert of CH Robinson. So we're gonna spend probably half of that session talking about the traditional stuff that you talk about, sort of the X's and O's of what's going on the track and what's going on in the terminals. But then we're gonna actually spend the back half of that session really talking about the customer-facing side and the, whatever term you use, account managers, account reps, customer service reps, everyone sort of has a different name for it, but that customer facing side, and really how do you get that excellence in those account managers to really service those shippers' accounts in the best possible way in all environments? How do you really excel in troubleshooting the shippers and keeping in touch with the shippers and really having a good dialogue with your shippers? That's something we've never really done before at any of our conferences. So I'm pleased that we're going to be able to spend at least 15 minutes on really that customer facing side.
Yeah, Ari, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, it's exciting to be a part of that panel. And looking forward to the fact that, we always call it the hero for our customers, right? So, when you hear service, people just immediately jump to the mechanics of service, the railroad service and those types of things. But really what a lot of the customers that we find are looking for is how did you recover? What was your proactive communication, and how are you the hero for our business and taking care of us? And I think that's an important part to put out there is that interface of who's working with the customer and what is that person or those people doing to help in the situations that are not the easy situations, as we call the exceptions, and how are those getting managed?
So that raises a good point. I spoke to a shipper last week, and he said, and I'm going to kind of couch it here because I don't want to throw any specific IMC under the bus, but he said, the reason why I like JB Hunt is because my account rep is proactive rather than reactive, to what you were saying, Shelli. So if there's a problem, what will happen is my customer service rep will start working on it, and they will call me to tell me, hey, there's a problem going on, but I'm working on it, and here's what we're doing, and I will keep you in the loop as it progresses. So the shipper, gets that proactive call and understands that their JB Hunt rep is actually doing something rather than just sitting there. And then the same shipper said, well, one of the other IMCs, and again, I don't want to name that IMC, it's very different. It's very reactive. The customer service rep is not going to reach out if there's a problem. They basically have to call them and push them and say, what's going on, before the customer service rep at this IMC really gets involved in trying to figure out what's the delay on that domestic intermodal load. So we'll really go into that factor of it and sort of the ways to approach it, and really how to be as excellent as possible to the customer so that you can keep and maintain loyalty.
So you're a part of a number of panels. I was looking through the agenda, the programming and everything. So how do you keep them all straight?
Well, fortunately for the truckload and intermodal sessions, at least 3 of them, I guess I would say, really the themes are the same. Shippers want to know what the outlook for the market is next year. They want to know, how do they approach their contracts? What happens if they lock in a rate in Q1 and the market kind of flips in Q2 or Q3 of next year, whether again in truckload or intermodal? How do I play that? How do I make sure that I get a rate that lasts? Or maybe do I do a 6-month bid as opposed to a 12-month bid? And that's kind of common between intermodal and truckload. I know Rick has told me he's participated in a number of short-term bids. So I think we'll be talking about that in a number of ways in truckload and intermodal. And then the other sessions, we have the session on Mexico. So hopefully it'll be a good opportunity to present to the audience the 3 options that are out there for people that want to near shore and move their stuff from Asia to Mexico and use domestic intermodal. You've got that CPKC option, the Mexico Midwest Express train. You've got the Ferromex option, the Falcon Premium, Ferromex, Union Pacific, and Canadian National. And then you've got, of course, JB Hunt out there with the switch from CPKC to BNSF in Southern Texas. So we're going to kind of go through all 3 of those options, walk through what they are, and just really present the options without, pushing them in one direction or the other. That's not our job to tell them which one's the best, but present all the options. And so they know if they're going to move to Mexico, what's on the plate and who are the providers that are moving there. And then the final session I'm doing is on environmental stuff. And I would tell you, Kevin, that the most interesting thing in preparing for that session that I've learned is that these technologies may be there, but the power supply is not. And I've heard so many stories of utilities, power companies that tell the trucking company, we don't have the electricity to give you to charge the amount of trucks that you want to deploy in your fleet. And then on top of that, there are still legitimate concerns about the payload. And so the common theme I heard is that these trucks are about 3 times the cost and only do about 1/3 of the payload of a standard diesel truck. And so even if you could get that electricity to charge all of those, there's some very legitimate concerns about how do we charge as a shipper, and how many of these trucks would we need if we can't carry the same amount of tonnage inside the trailer in an electric vehicle versus a standard diesel truck? So we'll definitely go into that.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces that have to come together at the same time, really, for a lot of these greener shifts to fully occur.
Yeah, very much so. Well, we'll have Union Pacific there, and we'll talk about how intermodal does, of course, have lower emissions, but we're going to push a little bit on Union Pacific. We're going to say, what What are you guys doing to explore new technologies? Again, where you understand the battery powered is probably not necessarily a legitimate option at this point, but we'll ask about that. We'll ask them about what CPKC and CSX are doing, which is the hydrogen powered locomotives in the experimental stage at this point, not necessarily ready to be used on a wide scale. And to what extent is Union Pacific paying attention to some of those experiments and potentially looking at those options in the future? So it's not just about where intermodal is today and the advantage it has, but where can they go from here to lower their emissions even further?
So people listening who may have some interest piqued here, who would you say is your ideal attendee to Inland?
The ideal attendee for me would be someone who is a VP of transportation or a VP of logistics, someone who is responsible for really either the domestic or international transportation, but the people who are in procurement, people that are in the actual day-to-day logistics of actually managing those relationships with steamship lines or railroads or intermodal providers or truckload companies. So we really go after those shippers and receivers, the ones who are actually putting the freight in the containers or on the back of trailers. But everyone is welcome. We're having a lot of intermodal sessions. So certainly any intermodal marketing company that wants to come, there's going to be a lot of good stuff that we're going to be talking about there. And I encourage anyone who's interested in either international or domestic intermodal, even if they're on the logistics side, a 3PL, either, an MVOCC or an IMC, to come on out, because there's just a lot you can learn there about your specific mode that you're working in.
Well, and being able to connect with people in these professions is certainly a key component as well.
Well, Kevin, you raise a good point. So from the international side, one of the things we do are think tanks. And so we take 4 markets across the United States. We look at the international, not the domestic, but we take Chicago, we take Memphis, we take Dallas, we take Kansas City, and we put a bunch of stakeholders into the room. We're talking drayage providers, we're talking NVOCCs, Class 1 railroads, chassis providers, pretty much everyone who's involved in the inland flow into these cities. And they just sit in the room and they talk about their market, what's going on, what are some concerns, how can we do things better? And completely off the record, what's said in the room stays in the room, but it's an opportunity not only to have an open and frank discussion in a comfortable private setting, but it's also a networking opportunity for either NVOCCs or frankly IMCs, because railroad people cover domestic and international that are attending our conference. But it's an opportunity for the NVOCCs, the IMCs, the drayage providers, but beneficial cargo owners to come on out and be able to network with the key people that are involved in moving your freight, make connections, perhaps start a new relationship that will pay off down the road if something happens that delays your load. You'll be able to talk to someone that you met at Inland and establish that new relationship. So it's a real networking opportunity as well in these 4 think tanks.
And I'm going to throw in a plug for all of JOC conferences based off of what the JOC does, which is out there reporting on a daily basis and digging into the details. The people that they have up on stage are some of the best people with the best content of what's going on in the market and how to get things done. And with Ari and Bill and all these other people that are doing the reporting on a daily basis, for them to lead these topics, the questions are really great questions, and they're getting great answers from some of the best people out there in the industry. So it's a great conference, and actually TPM is an awesome conference as well. Anything that AOC puts out, it's well worth a shipper's time or even a provider's time to go see and participate in.
Let me just add to that. So for people who sort of want to know who are some of the names that are going to show up in some of these sessions. So from the truckload side, we're going to have Tim Ashoff, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Crete Carrier. So many people know Crete or Schaefer Trucking as their reefer division. And on the domestic intermodal side, we try and sort of get everyone involved in terms of the non-asset community and the asset community. So JB Hunt will be at the conference. Hub Group will be at the conference. Schneider will will be at the conference. STG will be at the conference. Swift Intermodal will be at the conference, but the non-asset IMCs as well. CH Robinson, I mean, they have some boxes, but certainly a big non-asset player is there. You guys will be there. We've got Matson that's going to be there. So, a lot of opportunities to hear from really a lot of the big names in the industry. And then even from the railroads, we have, as I mentioned before in Shelli's session, CSX will be there. We've got BNSF there. We've got CPKC there. We've got CN there. We've got Norfolk Southern. We've got Union Pacific. We have all of the Class 1 railroads in North America on stage on some topic during the 2-day conference. So no matter what type of stakeholder you want to hear, we're really getting some of those big names that hopefully are ones you want to hear from.
So the theme of catching the rebound, and you talked about the fact that people are looking at when to get into contracts, how long the contract should be, when's that bounce going to occur. Since you have your finger on the pulse on a day-to-day basis, where do you think we are right now?
So I don't believe that we're going to see any sort of market improvement by the end of the year. And you don't really ever see that happen in Q1. That's very rare to see a market flip in Q1. So my guess is if it doesn't happen by December, and my gut says it doesn't, then I think you have to wait until probably April or May. So early Q2 would be the next point. I'd say perhaps that's when the market flips and it's more favorable to the carriers. And I'm talking about truckload here. Then intermodal is always sort of, good 3 to 6 months behind. So I'd say, unfortunately for intermodal, I don't see a case where they're going to have a significant uptick in the rates that providers are going to be able to get until next summer. Because again, and they always lag, because one of the reasons you go into intermodal, and I think this is, Rick's always said, price gets you in the door and service keeps you there. And he's right. You can't get in the door until the truck rates become high enough that intermodal gives you the price advantage that you want. So until those truck rates go up, there's probably not a huge swing in the domestic intermodal market. And unfortunately, I think it's probably a good 9 to 12 months away at this point.
So, yeah, that'll be, I'm sure, a big topic of conversation at Inland as well. So tell us about how people can register to go.
Sure. Well, before I do, I just wanted to mention that we're also going to, as I mentioned, have the railroads that are there. And so that will be an opportunity for us to ask them about how they're preparing. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I hear from shippers all the time, even from, frankly, IMCs, when I ask them, do you think the railroads have done anything fundamentally so that the next time around, the railroads will be able to handle the 20s or the 40s or the 53-foot containers better than they did in past down cycles? And almost universally, everyone tells me, no, we don't have any confidence that the railroads are any more structurally prepared the next time around than they were the last time around, and service will degrade exactly the same way. So we wanted to get 3 Class 1 railroads up there and give them 7 minutes apiece to talk about exactly what they're doing in their intermodal networks to make themselves more prepared for the next uptick. And then how will IMCs and shippers feel that, experience it, actually, feel it in their supply chain, all of those investments? What will be the real world impact? To your earlier point, so how can people go to the event? So you can go to our website, which is events.joc.com, events.joc.com, and then you will see a list of our events, and you go down to Inland and just click on the link, and then you'll have the entire page there where you can register and get a ticket for the conference, see the agenda, pretty much anything you want related to the conference is there. So events.joc.com, and you scroll down the page and click on Inland.
And any deadlines that people should be aware of leading up to it?
No, we've had 1 or 2 cases where people showed up and wanted to buy a ticket there. I wouldn't, advise that, but there are no deadlines. Our early bird, ended a long time ago. So at this point, the prices are set. And as long as you register and we have the registration, you could do it. Frankly, you could do it the day before if you want to. I wouldn't advise it, but if you wanted to do it the day before, it's all electronic at this point. You could do it on September 24th, hop on a plane, come on September 25th, and that's okay with us.
Great, Ari, and I won't bring up the Mets right now, so we'll leave that for another conversation. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Give me a while to mourn that.
Well, thanks very much, Ari. We appreciate you joining us.
Happy to help.
All right. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks, Ari.
Thanks for joining us for InTek Freight and Logistics, the podcast. And thanks very much to Ari Ashe and Rob Cannizzaro for taking the time to speak with us. Check out the links in the description to learn more about everything we discussed. Subscribe or follow now to ensure you get our latest episodes as soon as they're available. And you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen. If you have questions, email us at podcast@intechlogistics.com and visit intechfreight-logistics.com for more about what we do. For Shelli Austin and Rick LaGore, I'm Kevin Baxter. We'll talk to you next time.